Hello and welcome to Uncut and Unfiltered Cosmetology Insights with Nathan Shaw, where we help aspiring and current beauty professionals master the business and the craft of cosmetology so that you can build a successful, long-lasting career. Your guide is Nathan Shaw, a dedicated educator and a working man's hairdresser who successfully built his schools from his earnings from behind the chair. And on our show, he generously shares his deep industry experience to challenge misconceptions and to teach you the crucial skills needed to manage your career, even if you haven't started yet. I'm your host, Andy Traub. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most difficult challenges that people think about when they're getting into the industry, which is how do I build a client base from nothing? Unless you have a huge family that you can just have them keep coming through, you're going to run out of clients, right? So I know, Nathan, you often joke that when you graduate, there's no new client bus that pulls up outside your new salon and says, "Hey, we're here to work with the new lady," right?
Yeah.
And so building a full, consistent clientele is rewarding, but it's hard work, and it requires a lot of commitment and a lot of strategy. And so in this episode, we're going to talk about some really practical advice on how to build out your client base, and some ways to really jump ahead in that, because that's a huge concern. So Nate, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Let's talk about one that I think a lot of people would think about using, but one that you encourage people to start using. Actually, in school, I think you talk about this as well. Leveraging a digital portfolio. How important is it to have your own Instagram profile or whatever platform to show off your work?
I think it's super important in the current environment, right? When I started doing hair, I don't want to say how many years ago sometimes, but I that wasn't even out there. That wasn't available. It was
Yeah,
all
yeah,
word of mouth. And so I was never good at it, even when it became a thing, because, well, a couple reasons. Number one, I already had a very full client base and I wasn't looking to grow a bunch. But, that's where people go to now. They're always looking at looks that they want to like replicate on themselves, or like, they're looking for hairstyles or makeup, whatever it might be, and
right.
they're looking on those platforms. So having a presence there and putting your work out there, befores and afters, I think is crucial.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I think that's a pretty simple one, pretty cut and dry. Now we're going to get into some more nuanced ones. And again, the focus today is how do you build a client base? And for you who are already in the industry, I think you're going to get some value out of this as well, because there's a lot of nuanced things that you're going to explain, Nathan, when it comes to either getting your first set of clients or just growing. Let's say you're in this business, but you feel like, hey, I'm not growing. We'll spend a whole episode on that as well. Some of these things I think will apply to that as well. So the one of the big words that people will throw around all the time is referrals. Let's get really practical about that, Nathan, because yeah, getting referrals, great advice. How? What do you say? What do you need to do? Is it a healthy expectation that out of 30 regular clients that 29 of them are great referral sources, or are 3 of them going to result in another 30 people? So that's a couple questions there, but how do you begin to have a good referral base?
You begin simply by asking. And I know that sounds overly simplistic. When I started out, I was in a new town. I had an 8-month-old, I believe it was, an 8-month-old son, and my wife was staying at home with him. And your income's pretty limited when your wife stays home and you have no clients. So I also had, I had another job in the mornings. I baked bagels, and then I'd go straight from there and shower and head into the salon for the rest of the day. And, I remember looking at my appointment book, and in those early days, it wasn't digital. I had like a
Yeah,
paper
a
book,
book, a
yeah,
book. Yeah,
yeah. And you'd open it up and
made of paper. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I'd look in there, and I was working 6 days a week. And I might have a haircut on Monday and the rest of my week was empty, you know?
wow.
And you're like, okay, this isn't going to pay for rent or much groceries. We've got to figure
Yeah,
this out.
yeah,
And so I right away, out of necessity, right? It's that dad gene kicks in. It's like, I got to provide for my family. And even though I wasn't comfortable and I wasn't like the most experienced hairdresser, I knew I needed to start asking the few clients I did have to send me referrals. And so I did a referral program where I'd be like, hey, if you'll, I'd give them my business cards and say, put your name on these. And if you send me 3 clients, I'll give you a free cut, you know. Or if you send me 5, I'd give you a free hair color, which is more expensive than a haircut. And if they didn't, you know, do a chemical service like hair color, I'd just do a second free haircut. Um, you know, and a lot of people take the cards, and to your point, not everybody sent me referrals, but you had a few that would turn out to be rock star referral generating machines for you.
Yeah.
And you
And
know,
those people were two things probably. Maybe one, but well, I should say maybe two, but definitely one.
yeah,
One, they just weren't afraid to talk to people, right? And you know, there's that personality that's like, yeah, I'm happy to share that, right? And two, this is a possible, but likely is they're cheap, and so they wanted free haircuts. And you know
so
what? You don't care. You
yeah,
know, like I don't care for cheap because you're bringing me clients. You know,
absolutely. And
I don't
I've
mean that
talked
as a
about
negative at all. I mean that as a
no,
positive thing. If you get somebody who's super, you know, chatty, knows a lot of people, and is cheap, they're probably going to be a great referral partner because they don't want to pay for cuts, and they're willing to earn it. You know.
no, and that's just it. Like, you know, I've told my students in multiple different classes at times that most of my clientele when I was really busy, you know, you kind of have like a clientele tree, like a family tree, how it just grew from a few people. And
Yeah.
I could trace most of them back to 2 girls. And to your
What?
point, yeah, not all of them, but to your point, like the biggest
Wow.
bulk of my business kind of came from 2 girls, and one was a high school aged girl and one was a college age student. So of course, yeah, they were on budgets, right? But they wanted their hair to look good.
That's cool.
And they sent me referrals, and some of those referrals sent me referrals, and it just kind of built off of that, right? And so yeah, you can get a couple rock stars like that that really create an entire business for you when you look at it in the rear view, right?
You know, it's an interesting thing too, and I want to pause and let's think about this for a minute. Just as you're listening to us, as you're listening to Nathan and I talk, how many services do we take part in? Whether it's where you get your oil changed, or you know where you shop for groceries, or maybe it's a pediatrician. There's all these services. Maybe it's a handyman that comes and fixes something at your house, or somebody cuts the grass. Like, would you actually appreciate someone you really know, like, and trust giving you a name versus like Googling? I would really much rather call my neighbor and say, you know, who do you guys use for whatever? You know, like my point is people I think want to be referred to good people.
Absolutely.
And so it's not really a bother, right? It's to me, I'm the kind of person people do ask for recommendations. Hey, do you know somebody who does this? Da, 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 da. And I love having a good answer because I know that I am blessing 3 people. Number one, me, because I get to connect to good people. Number 2, the business provider, who I know I trust and is going to do a good job and they need to make money. And 3, the customer, right, who I connected them with. They need a good business provider, right? And they're going to be grateful they don't have to go spend money and waste it somewhere else. So I think that's another shift people have to have is like, hey, if you're good at what you do, shouldn't more people work with you?
Sure. No, that's a great example.
So let me ask this. It was that simple. You just said, here's my card. And so those cards probably cost you, I don't know, $20 to make 1,000 of them, whatever.
Yeah,
they've
yeah,
gotten
very
even
cheap.
cheaper and cheaper over time, right? But they've never been that expensive. But you know, spend a little bit of money on there, and you write their names, and you say, hey, write your name on the back. And every time you bring in 3 of those or send in 3 of those, and it's not that they have to have the card. They could say, hey, you know, Mary sent me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, oh, you don't have your card, you don't get credit. No, don't do that. Don't do that. But
No.
but those people very, very often became long-term clients, I assume.
Yes, they did. And that's one of the things I talk about with our students is the quality of a new guest or new client that has been referred to you compared to the quality of a new client that just happened off the street and the luck of the
Wow.
draw. It's night and day difference. Those referred clients, they already have a level of trust in you because someone they trusted told them to come see you, right?
Yeah.
And so they're going to trust your recommendations. They're going to trust, you know, the quality of the result. You know, just on and on. It's one of those things that there's a level of trust. They're going to most likely rebook an appointment with you, you know, and so you're going to build future business.
There's
It's just
there's a
head and
funny
shoulders.
connection. I can tell you this, the last lady who cut my hair, she just moved recently. But I had this weird connection because a buddy that I used to work with, he gave me her name, and I would go and sometimes I would see my buddy he had the appointment right before me. And it was always kind of cool. It's like seeing my friends at church or something, or, and like seeing them at the supermarket. It was like, you want to go where your friends are, you know?
Absolutely.
And so it was like, yeah, if he's good enough, she's good enough for Jared. She's good enough for me, And what's funny too, and this is maybe a funny little side thing, and you want to do this in a healthy way. You don't want to gossip about people, but I always had something to talk about with this lady. I was like, oh, have you seen Jared lately? And oh yeah, I talked to.
Yeah.
So we always had the person who referred me. We always had something to talk about because we had someone we knew and it was in common. So that's another great thing about a good referral is you always have something to talk about. The person who referred you,
Absolutely.
So talk about incentives though. Should I be afraid? Should people be afraid to give away? Could someone take advantage of that? Are you ever going to lose in that situation?
So I don't really see how you're going to. Like I said, I had a handful of clients that sent me a lot of referrals and they'd get the free haircut. And, I do the occasional free service, but the return on the back end for the new clients was so much greater. Right.
Yeah.
And that's just one way. I mean, in our waxing businesses, we've done similar things where it's like, we'll do a referral program where they'll send us a new guest and the new guest may get 10% off or something. But because they sent us a new guest, the existing guest gets an even greater discount, like 20% off their next service, right?
Yeah.
So there's multiple ways to do it. And new guest acquisition in any business is one of your biggest costs. So retaining your current guests is crucial. But if you can find ways to leverage a cheaper way to get new guests, and that discount is way cheaper than trying to just throw marketing dollars into the wind.
Yeah. If you've been sort of listening to us passively, I want you to lock in on what Nathan just said, because it's a core business principle that if you are not in the business or you don't get a lot of referrals, that you need to understand, which is that the cheapest client to get is the one you already have, meaning like just to get them keep coming back, it shouldn't cost that much, right? What's expensive is getting someone who's never worked with you before. The cost of acquisition, away, that can that can cost, some people will pay $100 to get a client that pays them $30 every time because on their fourth visit, you're making profit, right? But imagine if, for every 3 people you get a haircut, I mean, let's just say, how much you want to say the haircut is? $60?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, $60. So it costs you $20. It costs you $60 to get 3 new clients. That's a steal. $20 for a client, and you're going to make it back in the first client, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I actually like the idea you mentioned, and this is, I don't want people to give away the farm, but like I like the idea of incentivizing the referee and the referrer, which is, hey, you should go see my friend Nathan, and if you bring this card, I get credit towards free haircuts, but also you're going to get 25% off your first cut with him. The idea of like, oh, you win and I win, like, why wouldn't I? And you already trust them. You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's great because they're also, like, to your point, most of the people they're going to refer are friends and family, right? So they're giving their friend a discount to get something they're already probably needing or looking for, right?
Yeah.
So they get to kind of be, besides getting their own discount when they come back, they're able to be a bit of a hero to their friend or family member, right? Being like, oh, here, I'm going to hook
Absolutely.
you up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now here's the big one. We're going to spend most of the time on this is the key to building a great client base. You told it to me and I was like, that's about the simplest thing in the world, but I need you to break it down. Right. And you said, do a great job.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what you mean by the best way to build a client base is to do a great job. What do you mean by that on a practical level?
On a practical level, it's just being, great with customer service, caring about your guest, taking care of your guest, being attentive to their needs, and just providing an experience that that you'd want, that they'd want to come back to. And I say that maybe more than the even technical skill, because your technical skill is always going to improve. Like anything you do, the more reps you get, the better you get, right? So your first haircut is not going to be as good as your 1,000th haircut. And some people are going to be getting some of your first haircuts. So, but the thing is, if you make the guest feel important, if that haircut isn't 100% perfect, they're still way more likely to come back and give you another chance than if, if they're treated like they're just another blob sitting in your chair, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, they're just there, and I think that's the thing that, I really built my business around when I was starting out, because I was a new hairstylist like everyone else. I remember, I joke, me and my brothers had a term. We'd be like, man, I've wrecked a few wigs, because it's like, someone walked out and you're like, oh man, I hope no one, even though I want them to send me guests, I hope no one asks who did that, because
Right.
it wasn't your best work,
Yeah.
But you'd be amazed how many people, if something isn't right, they'll still give you the chance to fix it, and will even come back if you go the extra mile with them, and do everything you can to make their time with you valuable, and to be seen. Mostly people want to feel appreciated. And there's so many transactions in our modern world where you don't feel appreciated as a guest or a client.
You mentioned something else to me that I thought was really insightful, which is that in the beginning, you have a lot of time to do a great job, right?
Yeah.
Later, you might have a lot of people to get through, right? But you have the time to do an extra specially good job, or, hey, let me give you an extra, whatever the service is. I don't know, throw it in. But it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. We'll do it today. I'm happy to do it for you, which, is code for, I don't have one coming in for the next 2 hours, so I might as well practice this or whatever. You know what I mean? Do it because you have the time, right?
Absolutely.
Later, you will not probably have that much time, but it's another way of serving people and giving them a really great experience. What else did you want to mention about doing a great job? I know we've talked about other unique things you can do, like knowing someone's favorite drink, or, remembering things from the last conversation. But is there anything else you want to mention before we move on to the next point?
No, I think that's great. Like anything that's kind of a value add service, right? I heard an economist talking about the Five Guys, Five Guys burgers thing, about how they, if you've ever been there, they don't just give you the little cup of fries. They put the cup of fries in your bag, then they throw a whole nother scoop on top of the bag, right?
Yeah.
And he said, your CFO would be like, oh, that you're costing us $3 million a year in extra French fries. Quit doing that. Or, different people would be like, why that's a bad idea. But people overvalue the stuff that you gave them.
Yeah.
That wasn't asked for.
Yeah.
Whether that's just a great scalp massage during the shampoo, where you can take extra time and, and you really give a relaxing massage to them, or, maybe it's saying, hey, I'm going to give you a free deep conditioning treatment today, again, because you have time early on.
Yeah.
Or doing some of those extra steps that they didn't ask for, you're not charging them for, but you're showing, listen, I'm going to give you a little extra because I can.
Yeah.
And the people are going to add even more value than what the cost probably was.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, again, that might sound like simplistic advice, but sometimes, it doesn't have to be complicated, which is one of the best ways to get a great client base, is to just take really good care of the clients you have. And then I do think you add that to, ask for referrals. And I think you can ask for referrals from day one.
Absolutely.
You can. Because if you do a great job for that person, I listen, I'm not overly impressed by people who've been doing something for 50 years if they're not that good at it. Versus you've been doing it for 6 months and you're good at it. Cool. I'll send my friends to you. Like, I think I'd like my brain surgeon to not be fresh out of, medical school. But if you can do a great job providing, that service of nails or hair or skin or whatever, I think that's awesome and impressive. And it's a skill that very, 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 very few people have, right? Everybody can cut something. Give any human being a set of scissors and they can cut stuff. But how many people can do hair?
Yeah. They can actually give you the result you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's even some people who work in hair salons who can't do hair very well, right? So,
True.
So we won't talk about them. But that's a great. Last thing I want to ask you about is building a client base. Talk about choosing where you work.
Yeah. So I think this is, I don't want to say an underrated, but it's sometimes an overlooked or slightly overlooked thing when someone's starting out. Like, I think you need to, if you're going to look to going into a salon, you should probably check out that salon several different times, different days, different times a day, and just see what the energy of it is. Number one, that it fits your culture as a person, your core values, but also, are they busy? If you go in and you're going to a salon where half the staff sitting around in their own styling chair waiting for guests, you're probably not going to build as fast. Like I loved when I was in the salon, we'd bring in new staff, and they'd assist us part of the time, do shampoos, blow dries, help us because we had overflow. And then part of the time they'd just take new guests. But because we were that busy, we needed assistance. There was always new guests we could feed the new, the newer stylists to help them get a head start, that they didn't have to do everything from scratch, that they had some people, they had some built-in demand in that salon. And so I think you want to look for a salon that's going to help you grow.
Yeah. I love that advice. It reminds me of when someone told me about buying a house. They said, don't just go with the realtor during the perfect time of day.
Yeah.
Drive there at, 7 in the morning and see if there's people that randomly park on your street and then walk to work. Go there at 10 o'clock at night and see if the neighbors are party animals, get a different feel for it at different times. And I think that's great advice. Again, you have to kind of figure out how to do that without being a weirdo, but I'm just here 4 times in a week, just walking around, sitting in but I do think it's wise to check it out. I think that you could even, call and ask some questions to them just as an inquiring person and see how they handle it. I remember, and I think I've told the story before, but I remember feeling so dismissed as a customer at a salon I went to, whoever was working the desk and they didn't cut hair, they just worked at the desk. They were so dismissive of my questions. It's the last time I was ever there. It's the last time I was ever there because I asked about a price change and they were not, they didn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't communicated well," or, "Yeah, I understand why that would be frustrating," but, it was just, "Yep, that's what it is. Okay, see ya, bye."
Yeah.
Never coming back.
Yeah.
And so it's things like that they matter. If you have someone that works at the front desk who is not great with people, that's a problem because those are your people. And that person who works at the front desk may not be very incentivized to take care of people as much as you are. Because if you upset someone, they're never coming back, you're not getting paid. The front desk is going to show up and work at the front desk. So my point is there's just little things that matter. So I love that advice of interact with your salons in different ways that if you're thinking about working there. So phenomenal advice today. Thank you so much, Nathan. I know that there's been a ton of value. And again, I want to encourage you, if you're thinking about getting into this field or leveling up inside of this field, I want you to go. There's a link in the description below to a guide that I created along with Nathan's direction with Bailey, who is the head of admissions for all of Nathan's schools. And she will talk to you about why is cosmetology a rewarding career? What is the schedule for someone who's going to cosmetology school? How hard is it to get a job after you get out of school? All these questions and many, many more answered in the videos with Bailey. And she's super fun and engaging and smart. And so you can get those videos all free by going to the URL that we'll link to in the notes. So as always, Nathan, thank you for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.